Good evening and welcome to Mental Health Mondays. It's so good to see each and every one of you here. Always a treat to be here with you. We missed you last week, but we are back and we have an exciting topic that we will be discussing, something that impacts everybody's life, and that is stress. And we're going to be talking about how to better manage stress in a healthy way. And so we are excited about that. And Dr. Whyte, welcome. Always good to see you.
Always good to see you as well. Super excited to, I've crafted 5 tips that we will share with the audience. And yeah, it's always a treat. Let's see, is it Clive?
No, Clint.
Clint.
Oh, Clint. I don't forget your name. And
What,
he was
what's the
he
last name? But the last
Clint,
Ives? Is it
Clint
Clint Ives?
Ives. It's Clint
Okay, that's why
Ives.
I think that's what I was messing up. But
Yes, yes. Good to see you, Clint. And I saw that you were on church Sabbath and you were commenting and you were even repeating some of the things that Dr. White said. So thank you for being such a committed viewer of Mental Health Mondays and and I want to say retaining that information and sharing it with others. So
Clint Ives.
thank you for that.
Welcome, Clint. We see Bree as well. Bree is becoming a regular also. That's awesome. You guys,
Yes.
and look, they've already started putting where they're tuning in from in the chat. We
Yes, well, a
see
lot of them are saying hi. I don't. Oh, okay, yeah, Sharon
Southern New
from
Jersey.
New Jersey. Hi, Sharon. Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. Others can put in the chat where you're viewing from. We'd like to see where our viewing audience is viewing from, but we are just happy and thankful to have each and every one of you
Absolutely.
here this evening. So yes. So I know you're excited about this evening's topic, Dr. White.
Absolutely. I mean, but for several reasons. And as we looked at the title, it was Stress Management 404. Enough with the 101s. Let's
Oh,
get like deeper.
go deep
Let's
into
get
this.
more deeper.
Yes,
But
yes.
I mean, has anyone ever asked you how you're doing
Mm.
and you were desperately trying to find another word other than super, super busy?
Ah, yes.
Because to be honest, it's the cliche, I'm busy.
Yeah,
And I think we're all pushing it to the edge. We're all trying to do as much as we can and balance everything.
right.
So I thought a discussion on stress would be really, really helpful to our audience.
And I think it's good, this time of year. I mean, it's almost the Thanksgiving holiday time, and then right after that, it's Christmas time, and that's always stressful. The holidays are stressful for people every year. I mean, if it's not, sometimes there's family issues, and so they start to get stressed out because they have to spend time with family that they really don't get along with, or things like that, or just there's family issues, or there's financial issues around Christmas time, and people are stressed to try to make Christmas be everything that they think it should be for their kids, but financially they really can't afford that. This is just a stressful time of year.
Super stressful. Then you have that song, I'll Be Home for Christmas. Well, what if it costs a fortune to get
To get
home?
home, right?
And is it like the whole family's going to get home too? I mean, so there's so many pressures that it can feel really stressful, and trying to finish reports because there are obviously deadlines as you prepare for that season where things kind of slow down. So stress, stress, stress. There can be
Right.
tons of reasons why things can be super stressful.
I like what Clint said. He said seasonal trauma.
Seasonal trauma. Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, time always gets away from us, so we can jump right in.
Yes.
So, the first tip is know that there's good stress versus bad stress. Know that there's good stress versus bad stress. So, in a paper that was released in 2022, coming out of the University of Georgia, the lead author was one Dr. Assad Osorio at the Youth Development Institute. Um, and it was published in the Journal of Psychiatry Research.
Mhm.
What they recognized was that low to moderate levels of stress can actually help individuals develop resilience and reduce the rise of developing even mental health disorders. So there's this cool image where you have a human function curve, and what it
Right.
documents is a good part of where we're functioning is actually what's called eustress, and that's good stress.
Right.
It's when our resources get overwhelmed that it then becomes distress. So it's actually important that we do involve ourselves in activity that have a measure of stress. So the key things is, how do you keep it in the eustress, in the good stress zone, as opposed to it getting into the distress zone? And this is where the boundary setting is so important. This is
Hmm.
where it's so important to communicate to wherever the source of the stress is, communicate in such a way where you outline the processes that will allow you to perform the task. Now, we live on Earth, so there's always going to be some stress.
Right.
But if we are clear and we set the right boundaries and enforce the right consequences, then we can make sure that it's good stress. And good stress, as we learned from that study, actually helps us to develop in a good way.
Hmm.
So Veronica made a comment. Do we cause ourselves stress, or is something we allow others to impose on us? That's a good question, Sister Tante.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking at some other things that were popping up. So,
No,
I, so I
go
didn't
ahead.
know. No, no, I didn't read the question. I
It
wasn't.
says, do we cause ourselves stress, or is it something we allow others to impose on us?
I think it can be both. I mean, we can cause ourselves stress and then we can allow others to impose stress on us as well. It goes back to setting boundaries, not allowing people's their thoughts and feelings or things that they want for us or for us to do or whatever to become our own if that's not something we want. And then we allow trying to make them happy or fulfill that, causing them to stress us out. And then other times we can borrow stress. A lot of times with anxiety, we worry and then we worry, stress. We borrow those problems that we don't have to borrow, so we can bring it upon ourselves as well.
I would totally agree with. I would totally agree with you. That yeah, it can come from the inside, or it can come from the outside.
Right.
So again, it's really important to think through how to make sure that it stays in a good stress zone. So you guys would
Mhm.
probably appreciate an example. So what do we mean by good stress versus bad stress? So imagine if you're super like I guess you said Pastor Ivor is actually the cook, right?
Yeah, but this weekend I feel like I did a lot of it, and I was stressed. I was tired.
Is there a
He is the cook.
dish that you're really good at?
Yes, and I have to pat myself on the back. Yes, I am really, really good at Mexican food. So I get these recipes from my parents. My mother makes this amazing Spanish rice or Mexican rice from scratch, and it's way better than the restaurant could ever be. And then I make very good vegan tacos and other things, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind because I just made that the other day.
I'm gonna keep that in mind the next time my wife and I come down to
Yes.
visit Lexi.
Yes,
we're,
please.
we're gonna
We would love to do that.
we're
I'll
gonna
show you.
exploit you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
But so now let's use that as an example to show eustress versus eustress, good stress or
Mhm.
distress. So imagine if we say, hey, you know what? We're coming down 4 months from now. It'll be three of us, and let's set a date. Is
Right.
that good stress or bad stress?
Good stress.
That's good stress. You've got
Mhm.
time to plan. You're gonna get the resources. You've got time to set everything up. We'll agree on a date that's convenient, and
Right.
it's all good. Now, bad stress, on the other hand, would be, hey, we're at the airport and we're really starving. Can we come over? And we've got 10 people with us. And we heard you were really good with enchiladas.
Yeah, that's bad stress.
That's super bad stress. That I might the call's probably not even going to go through. So she has not, now resources are an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
want you to see it's the same skill. She's still skilled. She can
Right.
do it, but we've made it so that she doesn't have the resources in order to do it. So now it's not fun. It's not pleasant at all. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does make sense.
So
I think.
Deborah, go
Oh,
ahead.
there's
Go
a
ahead.
good. I know there's a good question. They have really good questions. I just wanted to say this. I was meeting with a student today, and I asked them how their semester's ending. How is their, how are their classes, the finals, and she said that she was stressed, but she knew she had the resources and she knew what to do. So the stress was just motivating her to just get it all done. And so I even told her today that's healthy stress, like, because you know what to do to get it done. So to me, that would be bad stress if you don't have the resources, you don't know what to do, you're not talking to the teacher, you're not making provisions to help you pass the class, basically, or for the final.
Exactly. No. So precisely.
Mhm.
That's precisely the case. That like when you feel like you have adequate resources, but that illustration that buds for you, Deborah, so that hopefully you could see that. Um, let's see. You asked, how do we know which stress we're experiencing? Do they have the same effect? So the eustress, Deborah, is it's a pleasant experience. It feels
Mhm.
good. Like if you're good at a thing and I give you adequate time and resources to do it, it literally feels good. You're like, absolutely, I'm all over it.
Right.
But if on the other hand, I don't give you the time, I don't give you, and maybe you're not that good at it, then I more make it something more stressful. And
Mhm.
so that's where you get to set the boundaries where you're like, you know what? I could do it for you, but this is the amount of time I'm going to need. And since you're bringing 20 people, I'm going to need a budget. So I'm going to need some money, blah, 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 on and on. And then you get to design the scenario that would make it fun, or you get to say no.
Right.
That
Yes.
that's an option. No. So, like for example, if when I called Sister Atonte with my 10 guests went with Mexican, all she would probably say is, "I know where there's a great Mexican joint. So
Down the
yeah.
street.
So here's the address." And
I wouldn't say that in Alabama, but if we were in California, I would say that. Okay, no shade to Alabama, but
no shade to Alabama. Anyway, so I hope that was helpful. All
yeah.
right. Now, Clint asks, can food affect stress levels? Can food affect stress levels? I have an interesting way in which it can affect stress levels. So, first and foremost, Clint, the absence of food can absolutely affect stress levels
Mhm.
because this is an issue of resource. So, one of the things that can skyrocket stress is when there are inadequate resources. And food, of course, like you'll notice that you are a completely different person when you are full, when your stomach is full versus when it's not full.
Mhm.
There are people who have literally nasty attitudes when they're hungry. Um, and the
Yeah.
important thing is to be aware of that. It's to be, look, I haven't eaten anything. This is probably not the best time to have this conversation. But so the amount of food can affect the stress level. And then there are foods that can affect stress levels. So, for example, Clint, if you eat something that, let's say, it's super spicy, and now your belly is acting like a washing machine practically, you're probably gonna not respond the same way as if you were nice and calm and at peace.
Mhm.
All right. So please be aware of that. Look, Veronica said, my husband calls it hangry,
Well,
especially.
that's what Clint said too.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly how you spell it. Well, they have
Mhm.
variants in spellings, but I'm sure the Urban Dictionary will settle the score.
Right,
But
right.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, so you want to be aware of that there is some good stress and there's some bad stress. And one other thing is at the MIT Sloan Management Review, talked about the 5 textbook elements of a toxic workplace. Because I know a lot of you guys are actually working, and
Mhm.
this is what can cause stress. One is disrespectfulness taking place in that workplace. Number
Right.
two, non-inclusiveness. Number three, there being unethical practices. Number four, things being cutthroat. And number five, if abusiveness by the management is being allowed. These are things that are going to make the setting much, much more stressful.
Mhm.
So it's important to mitigate those things.
So just circling back to I think our original first question that someone asked, and going back to the boundaries and saying, learning how to say, I'm quoting you, the beautiful no. So you
Yes.
think if when someone learns how to set a boundary and be able to say the beautiful no, that's really the magic of just doing as much as you can or that you're willing and able for you and your life and your situation, so you don't overstress yourself out or let other people stress you. So it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing to be able to learn how to say that beautiful no.
No, absolutely. And what's interesting is the part of what will seduce us from issuing that no is because we're afraid to get that little twinge of dissatisfaction in the person. You
Right.
know, we're
Right.
inclined to people pleasing, and we don't want to deal with them being displeased. And you know, the little
Mhm.
passive aggressive facial expressions or statements that they
Oh
can
yeah.
make. Well, you did it for that person, or you did this, or I
Right.
knew I couldn't count on you. And this is the kind of stuff that you're wanting to avoid, so that it really, that's the internal work you have to do, where you don't find your validation from external,
Mhm.
where when you can get it from the internal, when
Mhm.
you're satisfied with your satisfaction with yourself. That's a core part of the psychological maturity and the emotional intelligence. Like, it's even, being aware.
Mhm.
But that's important work to be done, Sister Tante, because you're the defender of the stress and your stress level. You're the defender based on the
Mhm.
boundaries that you set.
Mhm.
Um, and it brings us to tip number two. Tip number two is really being aware of your negative self-talk.
Mm.
Okay, being aware of your negative self-talk. Sometimes your self-talk is what's going to set you up for your stress experience.
Right.
You know, like you say something like, for example, I'm never going to get this work done.
Mhm.
you know Now you're approaching it in a defeated fashion, and maybe you're more prone to distractions. um and or you might say something like, let's say, there's no point in doing this, or this has no significance, or this job is awful. Those are all thoughts you can interrogate. Is the job really awful?
Right.
Because you didn't say that initially when you got it. And I understand that it has some low points, but is it bad 100% of the time? Even when you're paid? You don't even like payday? You know,
Right.
you
Yes.
know. So at some point, if you interrogate the thoughts, you're gonna see that no, this isn't actually accurate. I'm actually succumbing to flawed thinking that's really not serving me. And
Right.
it's actually adding to my stress. It's making this more burdensome. So being aware of the thinking, the discipline of emotional intelligence, it has basically 4 principles. Principles one is being aware of
Mhm.
your internal mental state. um, Number two, managing that your internal state. Number three is being aware of the internal states of others, and then
Mhm.
the managing others. So a big part of that emotional intelligence then is being aware of what's going on with you. Why is this stressful to me? What are the thoughts that I'm entertaining that's magnifying
Mhm.
the difficulty? Does this make sense?
Oh, it makes a ton of sense because if you're by not being or becoming aware of your negative thoughts, then that helps for you to be able to interrogate those thoughts, and then you can change your perspective, and you can come from a healthy perspective. So normally, those negative thoughts are coming from a negative perspective about your job, about your life, about your whatever the case may be. And so becoming aware of those thoughts, you have to become aware before you can interrogate them. And so
Exactly.
it's so very important.
Exactly. Okay. So for tip number 3, this is huge. This is huge. For tip number 3 and how you can manage your stress, it's know what gives you energy. Know the things that give you energy. Um, so I'll tell you one of the things that gives me energy. And Sister Tante, I want to hear some of the things that give you energy.
Oh my
Um,
word.
one of the big things that gives me energy, and it's subtle. A lot of people, when they wake up in the morning, the first thing they're reaching for is a cup of coffee, right? But one of the things I've noticed is if I reach for a jug of water, if I reach for water
Yeah.
and I hydrate early in the morning, it gives me really meaningful energy. I mean,
Mhm.
I feel good. And it's a sort of good that lingers and it really lasts as the day goes on.
Mhm.
So be aware of those things that give you energy. Other people, they get it from a decent workout, even if they
Mhm.
go for a quick walk.
Yeah.
Um, there are things that will literally give you energy. And of course, energy is something that of course will help you manage your stress
Right.
because a big part of stress is a feeling of overwhelm,
Right.
you know. But yeah, take an inventory of those things that give you energy and make sure you're doing them. Okay, we know you're heading into the holiday season. We know that things get stressful at this time, and so we wanted to equip you with some tips to really help you manage your stress this season. Now,
Mhm.
Sister Tante, what's one of those things that gives you energy?
Well, I was thinking when you first asked the question, and when you said the first thing you grab, well, I talked about it 2 Sabbaths ago, 2 church services ago. It is my prayer journal. It's right on my nightstand, like right by my bed. And then I, start my prayer journal and journaling and praying and talking to God. And that gives me energy because any stress that I think I may be having to deal with in the day or whatever, I'm talking to God about it right there, and I have confidence that I can take on the day and deal with whatever I have to deal with. So that's what gives me life or
And
energy.
and and don't think that we just say this to you guys. We actually follow this stuff because after you said that, I started incorporating writing
Yeah.
into my devotional period. I shred it afterwards because I don't want anybody finding my
Well, I
stuff.
don't have to shred it because I have my husband respects my prayer journal. He does. I tell him the stuff that I'm praying about, but with the kids, I was like, you don't go near my prayer journal. And
Oh,
sometimes they'll tease me. They'll have it in their hand. I'm like, give me my journal, and so it's just a joke. They're teasing me about it, but yeah, they can't go near it because they're all in it. They're in it. They don't need to know some of my prayers. They just
look
need to
at
know I'm praying.
Choice Fortune. Hi, Choice. Thank you for your question. She said, I take care of my mother who has Alzheimer's and my 3 grandkids, 2.5, 4, and 5 years old, and I'm drowning in stress. How can these tips help me? Because I'm starting to stress, and I'm sure that's out. Oh, she said
No,
stress
stress
eat.
eat.
She stress
No,
eat.
stress
Oh, I
eat.
was
No,
like, oops, I'm
yeah,
sorry
it's
about
okay.
that.
It's okay. Stress eat. And God bless
Well,
you, Joyce, because
yeah, I mean,
wow,
first I would
that's a lot.
start. Yeah. Do you want to go first, Liz?
No, I was gonna let you go. I'll piggyback off of you. I just
Yeah.
wanted to tell her that that's a lot. Like
You know,
I have
first and foremost, Choice. Um, I just want to pay you as much honor as possible, like props
Yeah.
and it's really amazing. First of all, there's so much significance in what you're doing. You said I take care of my mother who has Alzheimer's, and that would have been enough just there by itself,
Right.
because you can get caregiver burnout just from that alone.
Yes.
But I also want to just shine a spotlight on the honor of us taking care of the caregiver that gave us life, that nurtured
Mm,
us. Like, it is just such a beautiful thing to be able to turn around
it is.
and now provide love and care to that person. So that's absolutely, phenomenal. And then, of course, here you are contributing to your grandkids. I remember when my mother needed that help,
Yeah.
and we actually stayed with our grandparents for a while, and we didn't know our family was in crisis. We didn't even know it because of how thoroughly our grandparents took care of us. So yet again, there's just what a gift. There's a chance those grandkids, they might not even know, like, you're shielding them from so much. So that is amazing, as well. But as amazing as the things are that you're doing, obviously it leaves you with very limited energy.
Mhm.
um, First and foremost, please understand how significant what you're doing is. Please understand that.
Yeah.
And please let that give you permission to get the support that you need. As you can see, if you don't give yourself that permission, then it leaves you vulnerable. It leaves you vulnerable to cope in ways that are not as helpful, and that'll cause problems.
Mhm.
So one of the things about stress eating is we're really supposed to eat for hunger, because when we eat for hunger, then the size portion tends to be somewhat restrictive.
Right. It goes
But
with the feeling of hunger.
if we're eating for emotional reasons, on the other hand, the portion size can, of course, balloon, and even the things that we choose to eat. So that definitely is not the ideal. And so the goal then would be that choice would actually say, okay, let me get some support. It might look like therapy. It might look like taking an inventory of what does it for you. What are healthful things that will do it for you? Is it wheeling those grandkids around, some serene setting that's beautiful and
Mhm.
peaceful and safe? Is it working with a family member to say, I need a break at this time so that I can do a Zumba class, or I can do something that's meaningful to me?
Mhm.
Is it, I need an hour to get some therapy?
Right.
But it is really a matter of taking that inventory of your time, your life, your resources, so that you can then um, recover, heal, and be able to sustain your ability to give. Because if you're going to give out, you have to
You have
take
to
in.
pour in.
You have to pour back in, but not in a maladaptive way, in a way that actually positions you to be able to continue to give at that high level. But I'll just conclude by saying it is amazing what you're doing. You're
Yes.
impacting two generations,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely amazing. What were
I
you going to say, Sister
I would
Tony?
say I concur with everything you said, and to just say that what you're doing is amazing. What Dr. White was sharing, I mean, you being able to do some type of self care for yourself. So that you will be the best version of yourself for the people that you are helping and taking care of and that you love. And if you don't take care of yourself first, meaning like he was saying, like talking to other people who can help you out so that you can do something that you enjoy, that makes you feel good, or that gives you life, so that you can recharge, and be that amazing caregiver for your mom, for your grandchildren. So it's so important to take care of yourself. I think the stress eating is what I think you're doing to alleviate some of the stress, it's just not a healthy way to do that. There's healthier ways for you to do that. That's going to help you, again, to recharge yourself and just be that best version of yourself. So again, you'll just continue to be that blessing to your mother and your grandchildren, and it won't cause you any harm. Because so many times caregivers can, because they're so stressed and are working so hard, can become ill themselves when they're taking care of elderly parents. So it is an amazing thing of what you're doing, but it's also important to take care of yourself as well, so that you are here to do this amazing work that you're doing.
Well said. Well said. This would be a good space for us to kind of share about the challenge that the Mastermind Institute is doing, because as Choice is pointing out, sometimes we need more than just the tips like that we're saying.
Right. I think Dr. Whyte is frozen. I don't know what happened exactly, but maybe if we could put that website up. And I don't know what happened to him. All right, there it is. Challenge.killing.burnout.com. I wanted him to do it because he's doing this class and I know he wants to do it as well. So we're going to find out what happened. But if you go to challenge.killing.burnout.com, you will see that this is a free class that he's offering. I believe, see, this is why he should have done it, because it's his class. But I believe it's the first week of December. I think it might be 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks of December, I believe, and I could be wrong about if it's 2 weeks, but I believe that it starts in the beginning of December. And then you will be able to join that class and learn, going deeper into how to basically deal with stress, killing burnout, all of those things. And it will be a true blessing. So definitely take a screenshot or take a picture of this website, challenge.killing.burnout.com, because you're going to be able to learn a lot more. I know that Choice that just gave us that question earlier, you definitely want to partake in this. All of you do, but I really think it's very important for us to learn how to deal with stress, not just for our mental health, but because of our physical health. Stress causes a lot. I'm not a medical doctor, but stress does cause a lot of physical damage to our bodies and to our health. And so for our mental health, it's so important, because when we stress out, we're moody, we're can easily get angry. We'll argue with our spouse, with our children, with our coworkers, whatever the case. You're just not a happy person when you're stressed out. And then that's what it can do to you mentally. It can cause depression. It just exacerbates anxiety. The unhealthy stress is not our friend. But then it also can affect you physically. Stress has been linked to certain cancers. It is difficult for the body to heal when it's under so much stress. So again, the unhealthy stress is not our friend. And so just to remind you guys that we are taking questions that you may have about stress. When we get Dr. Whyte back on, he will answer specific questions about this challenge and this program that he's doing. Challenge, the killingburnout.com, that you can learn more about it. But I am here to continue to answer your questions about stress. And so looking at, all right. So there's comments too, reading some of the comments here. Let's see. Love is a good thing, especially relationships with people, but why? Let's see. Why does this cause the most stress in life when it should be? When it should be a beautiful, beautiful, loving people. That is meaning. I'm going to reread that. Okay, relationships. Like love is a good thing, especially relationships with people. But why does this cause the most stress in life when it should be the most beautiful thing? That's a great question, because yes, relationships, whether that's romantic relationships, your parental relationships with parents with their children, children with their parents. Like these are all relationships based on love. But then it also can be very, very stressful as well. So a lot of times, in relationships, different personalities, like it depends on the relationship. But let me before I go to a family relationship, let's just go to a marital relationship. So, you get married and you're two different people, coming from two different personality types, just individuals who think differently. You do things differently, but you fall in love and you want to get married and you come together. And then once you bring your life together and they say now the two are one, you know you're one in a sense, but you're still two individuals. And so you think differently. And again, you handle things differently. And sometimes the way other people, your spouse does things that stresses you out or makes you upset, or your spouse may, or do something that you just really don't like and that stresses you out, and you're not happy. And so that relationship can cause you stress just because you're two different people. If we look at the parental relationship with parents, and with their children, so your children are children even when they become adults. They're still your children, but as they are going through that developmental stage, like going from little kids depending upon you for everything, and then they go through the stage where they're becoming more independent, and they're becoming teenagers and then young adults. They are making decisions for themselves. They're looking at the world through their own lens and not through mom and dad's lens. And so they're wanting to make choices based on what they're seeing and how they're feeling. And a lot of times parents have a difficult time with that, because if they don't make the transition with the children, that causes the parents stress and the family stress. And that might cause arguments. That usually tends to cause arguments. And so even though these are relationships based on love, if we don't grow in these relationships, especially the parent to the child relationship, if we don't learn how to back away and not have so much control and let the child live their life, um, we can, if we don't like the decisions they're making, we can pray. God has given us that option. We can pray, but trying to control their life is going to stress you out. And actually, God taught me that lesson a couple of weeks ago. And I have to say that in this certain situation with this certain child that I have, I'm a lot less stressed, because God showed me, he said, you've been praying about this. Now I need you to step away and let me work and not micromanage the situation. That's what God told me. And I obeyed. And I can say that I'm less stressed now because I'm handling it different. All right. We have more questions here. So hopefully that answered your question about why relationships can be so stressful. All right. Bree says, my aunt is a medical missionary massage therapist, and she was recently explaining to me how we often store trauma in our muscles, hips, etc. I am not a medical professional, but I do know that I've read books like the body keeps score. It doesn't forget, meaning about the trauma. And so I believe that what your aunt told you is true. I know that a lot of people carry their stress in their shoulder areas. So I know when I've been to massage therapists and they're like, wow, your shoulders are tight. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's where I carry my stress. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy. But yes, our muscles can do that. That's why we feel tense in our shoulders, like when we're stressed out. So the body does tense up when we're under a lot of stress. So everybody pray that Dr. Whyte can get back on, because he really wanted to share about his program, and I want you guys to hear about it as well. So I believe we're working on getting him back on here as well. All right, still looking at your questions. Let's see. Yes, you need that class. We're going to go to that Allura Stone, go to that. Let's put the website back up there so you guys can look at it when we're done. Definitely write it down, take a picture of it. Yeah. So you got, yes, challenge.killingburnout.com. And again, I think it's a 2-week class, and he's going to be sharing along with his colleague. She is a neuropsychologist, and they are going to be sharing some great information. All right, here we go. How do you deal with a coworker whose mental breakdown and outburst at work causes you to be anxious? Um, yeah, that can be very stressful when you have issues like that at your job. So really, not specifically, well, yes, you can use this specifically for that issue, but you can use it for any time you're feeling anxious. And I talk about this all the time when I do presentations about anxiety, is to do the breathing, deep breathing, because deep breathing, so taking a deep breath from your abdomen, holding it so a deep breath, taking it in for 4 counts, holding it for 7 counts, and releasing it through your mouth for 9 counts. This deep breathing actually slows your heart rate down. They say it's like giving your central nervous system a hug. So when that person is having the outburst and you feel the anxiety building up in you or starting to come in you, you need to do your deep breathing. And you can do that. Like I tell people, you can do 3 sets of that, like do it 3 times. Or you can do it 4 or 5 times if you feel like you can do it as often as you feel that you need to when you're feeling the anxiety, because that, again, it's giving your nervous system a hug, relaxing your nervous system. It is slowing your heart rate down, so you are physiologically calming down. So even though that person is having an outburst and it causes anxiety in you, you will remain calm and you don't have to feed off of their outburst. So that's what I would tell anybody for any anxious situation, to help you physically calm down. Does stress affect your life expectancy? Again, I am not a medical doctor. Dr. Whyte is, but I mean, he's a psychiatrist, but he's an MD, so he's a medical doctor. Um, I would This is how I would answer that, because stress can aid in causing disease in your body. It can cut your life expectancy short, because the disease itself may take your life, but the disease may have been caused by the stress. And so that's why it's just so important not to stress, again, for your mental health, but for your physical health as well. And for those Bible believing Christians out there that are watching this and that will watch this program, the Bible tells us not to worry, not to be anxious, not to stress. All of those things put together 365 times. And so that's just letting you know that our creator, those who believe in the God of heaven, our creator created us to not stress, but to depend on him. And I believe that he did that for our physical health and obviously for our mental health as well.